What's up? Back. Just gonna read some more of this book, Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns, and Fairies by Robert Kirk. I stopped last time at part 5. So I'll just read through, see how far I get, see how cumbersome this is or how it goes. Yeah, still got a ways to go. Alright. Part 5, Fairies and Physical Research. So let me pull up the comments here. I'm only streaming to my channel this time. I don't know if I should stream to Jacob's. I was waiting for him to message me back because this is not really up. His channel wants it to be more biblically focused, and it's more Jewish. And this is not the Bible. It's about fairies, and it's if it does bring biblical aspects into it, I feel like they're very Christian. So I don't know. I could do it to his channel just to maybe grab a broader audience, but he hadn't responded. So I did it to his channel last time, and he didn't say anything to mine. So I don't know. I'm debating it. I'll just do it. He can delete it later, I guess, if he wants to. There. It's gone. So I don't know. And responded, if he tells me not to, I will take it down or stop streaming to his channel, then he can delete it, I guess. But I'll just do it because he told me before to stream to his channel because he liked me doing that. So we'll see. Wait. Oh. Nope. I got a message from. Oh no, it's not a message from him. So I'm now streaming to Jacob's channel as well. We'll see how that goes. I was just gonna read some more of this book, Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns, and Fairies. The metaphysics of fairyland is what it's kind of described as. So I don't know. Part 5, Fairies and Physical Research. The fairy belief, we have said, is a composite thing. On the materials given by tradition, such as the memory, perhaps, of a prehistoric race, and by old religion, as in thoughts about the pre-Christian Hades, poetry and fancy have been at work. Some lingering disease, unexplained disappearances, sudden deaths have been accounted for by the agency of fairies or people of peace. If the superstition included no more than this, I guess I'm afraid people of peace. If the superstition included no more than this, we might regard it as as a natural result of imagination, dealing with facts quite natural in the ordinary course of things. But there are elements in the belief which cannot be so easily dismissed. We must ask whether the abnormal phenomena, which have been so frequently discussed, fought over, forgotten, and revived, do not enter into the general mass of folklore. They appear most notably in the 2 branches of browniedom, of pixies, as they say in Devonshire, who haunt the house, and in alleged examples of the second sight. The former topic is the more obscure, if not the more curious. Let us examine the occurrences, then, which may have been forgotten in belief in brownies and in the house-haunting pixies or fairies. These appearances may be alleged, on one hand, to be actual facts in nature, the workings of some yet unexplained forces, or they may that form of imposture, again, may be wrought either by conscious agents or unconsciously and automatically by persons under the influence of somnambulism. I don't even know what that word is. SOMNAMBULISM. Somnambulism. Or finally, the phenomena may in various cases be due to any one of these 3 agencies, all of which may possibly be very causae. I don't know, it's Latin or something, as conscious imposture and trickery is certainly one very causa. Conscience, imposture, and trickery is certainly one vera causa. In Mr. Cook's book, we meet the invisible wights which haunt houses, throw great stones, pieces of earth and wood at the inhabitants, but hurt them not at all. As we have said, Major 1518. So that's a name. I can't remember who that was. Major. I don't know. As we have said, we call these whites fawny or brobny, that is, brownies, and says that they thrash as much grain in one night as 20 men could do and throw stones about. The legend of their working was common in Scotland, and a correspondent says that in Devonshire the belief in pixies who set the house in order exists among the grandparents of the present generation, but the sportive is more common than the kindly aspect of brownies. That's interesting. The sportive is more common than the kindly aspect of brownies. Through history, we constantly find them causing objects to move without visible contact, and acting in sport like boons and drolls. In his letters on demonology, Scott gives instances where the buffoon or droll was detected and confessed that the rattlings of plates and movements of objects were caused by an apparatus of threads of horsehair. What? In his letters on demonology, Scott gives instances where the buffoon or droll was detected and confessed that the rattlings of plates and movements of objects were caused by an apparatus of threads or horsehair. An apparatus of threads or horsehair. Is that something like string theory? Like, what is he even talking about? No, that can't be. He also quotes the famous doings of the just devil of Woodstock in 1649, which so perplexed and discomfited the Cromwellian commissioners. He accounts for those annoyances by the confessions of Joe Collins of Oxford, quotations Funny Joe, which he quotes from Hone's Everyday Book, while Hone quotes from the British Magazine of 1747. But the writer in the British Magazine gives no references or authorities for the authenticity of Funny Joe's confessions, nor even for the existence of Joseph. Scott could not find his original in the pamphlets of the British Museum, and some of the statements attributed to Joe do not tally with the official account, and other contemporary documents collected in Sir Walter's Woodstock. Joe pretends, for example, to have been secretary to the commissioner under the name of Giles Sharp, but in the other accounts, the secretary is named Brown. A royalist brownie or poltergeist lies under shrewd suspicion, but Joe's own existence is unproved, and his alleged evidence is of no value. However, no sane person can dream of doubting that many a brownie has been as much in flesh and blood as the brownie of Bodsbeck in Hogg's story. What on earth is he talking about? I have no idea what's going on. He accounts for those annoyances by the confessions of Joe Collins of Oxford, Funny Joe, which he quotes. So what is he saying? That no references or authorities for the authenticity of Funny Joe's confessions, nor even for the existence of Joseph. So are they saying that this guy is Funny Joe is actually a brownie that went by different names? I don't even know what he's saying. Well, thanks for tuning in. Sorry, this doesn't make any sense. There remain the less easily explicable tales of strange and humorous disturbances accompanied by loud sounds, rappings, the moving of objects without visible contact, and so forth. Perhaps we may best examine these by taking modern instances collected by the Physical Society in the first place, and then comparing them with cases recorded at distant times and in remote places. Some curious common features will be observed, and the evidence has at least the value of undesigned coincidence. Glanville, Telfair, Minister of Rarick, the Wesleys, Dr. Adam Clark, Increase Mather, were not modern students of physical research. So I guess he's just listing names that had common coincidence. I don't know. The modern physical researches, we fear, are not students of old legendary lore, which they dismiss on evidence not first-hand nor scientifically valid. Thus, they do not seem to be aware that they are describing, almost in identical terms, phenomena identical with those noted by Telfair, Rother, Lavater, and the rest, and by those ancients attributed to devils. The modern recorder's acts not consciously, sorry, the modern recorder's acts just seems like a weird word. This is me. The modern recorder's acts not consciously copying from old accounts. The coincidences therefore have their value as proving that certain phenomena have occurred and occurred. Now, these phenomena may be due to conscious or to hysterical imposture, but they have been frequent and common enough to keep alive, and probably to originate a part of the fairy belief, that part of which is concerned with brownies and house-haunting pixies or domovoys. These again correspond to the tricky beings described by Mr. Leland in his Etruscan remains as survivals of old Roman and Etruscan popular religions, while we find similar occurrences in the empire of the Incas not long after the Spanish conquest of Peru. Yikes. I don't know. I guess he's just talking about just for different historical accounts. If anyone wants to join, also, you're more than welcome to. If anything, if you hear anything that interests you, hop on in here. Let's see. Beginning then with what is nearest to us in time, we take Mr. F.W.H. Myers' essays on the alleged movement of objects without contact occurring not in the presence of a paid medium. The alleged phenomena are, of course, as common as blackberries in the presence of paid mediums. The alleged phenomena are, of course, as common as blackberries in the presence of paid mediums. I don't know what that means. I'm not even sure what that statement is trying to. The presence of a paid medium. The phenomena are, of course, as common as blackberries in the presence of paid mediums, but are to the last degree untrustworthy, even when there is no paid medium present. The mere contagious excitement which is said to be developed at seances makes all that is thought to occur there a story to be taken with plenty of salt. One of Mr. Myers' examples was the result of seances, but it had features of great importance for the argument. It will be found in Prox SPR, volume 19, July 1891. The performers are Mr. C, Mrs. C, and Mr. H, Mr. C, and Mrs. C. Are spoken of as good witnesses, known Mr. Myers and Professor Barrett. Mr. H's health has suffered so much that he cannot be examined, and Mr. H is the person who interests us here, for reasons which we will be given later. All three were unbelievers. All three were unbelievers in these matters. On the second evening, in these matters, on the second evening, lights floated about the room, which was lit apparently by a full moon. F, who is also H, what? I don't understand what's happening. What are they even talking about? F in quotation marks, capital F, period, in parentheses, who is also H, capital H in quotation marks. So I guess Miss F is also Mr. H. He felt cold hands touching, and hands recur in the old pre-scientific accounts. The three mages were holding hands tightly at the time. Now Mr. H had hitherto been in excellent health, but after his chair was dragged from under him, and he was thrown down on the ground, he went into a trance. His watch and ring on the finger of his hand held by Mrs. C were carried to a remote part of the room. H leaves the circle and sits at the window. Another figure walks through the room. H returns, is thrown down, his coat is dragged off, and his boots are discovered on a distant sofa. He asks for something from home, goes into a trance. A photograph locked up by him at home is found on the table. His wife in town, being quite ignorant of our having and had seances, told us that, at that very hour, a fearful crash occurred in his bedroom. The photograph vanished and returned last night when H was in a trance. He is thrown down again. He has alternate fits of unconsciousness and raving delirium. The home of Mr. and Mrs. C, not the house where they sat, is vexed by figures, noises, knockings. We were sprinkling with water in the night. Oh, that's, I guess, a quote by them. We were sprinkled with water in the night, haunted by sounds of drums and horns, and so forth. Before a manifestation, we all felt a sudden chill, like either a wave of intensely cold air passing or a rapid decrease of temperature. My goodness. Don't do seances, apparently. Golly. Sounds pretty crazy. I've heard that before. I've heard that lots of times, actually, that like people say like spirits entering the room or something like that, or ghosts. There'll be like a drop of temperature in the room, or like it'll feel cold. Or you'll go through a house, if you're walking through a house and you go into a certain room, like the temperature will just be drastically different. My old house had a room like that in the back room. And I did not go in those rooms. There were 2 back rooms, and I kept those doors closed, even when I sold the house. I did not use them. Sorry. I probably should have burned some sage in there. But they yeah. One of the rooms was, yeah, it was always colder though. And it felt awful. I tried to there were 2 rooms. I tried to stay in the one that didn't always feel awful for a week. It didn't last a week. I was like, nope, I'm not sleeping in here anymore. So I just closed the doors. I didn't use those rooms. All right, so back to this. This is a disgusting story if Mr. H's health was ruined by his presence at the performances. The point, however, is that he did behave in uh, epileptic fashion while these events were in progress. It is natural to suppose that, in his trances, he may have been capable, unconsciously, of feats physically and morally impossible to him in his normal condition. This explanation would not cover all the alleged occurrences, but would account for many of them. We now take an ancient instance. Similar disturbances at Newbury, in New England, in 1679, similarly accompanied by the presence of an epileptic patient. The house of William Morse was strangely disquieted by a daemon. The inmates were Morse, his wife, and their grandson, a boy whose age is not given. The trouble began on December 3rd with the sound of heavy objects falling on the roof. On December 8th, large stones and bricks were thrown in at the west end of the house. The bedstead was lifted up from the floor, and the bedstaff flung out the window, and a cat was hurled at the wife. Good God. The bedstead was lifted up from the floor, the bedstaff flung out the window, and a cat was hurled at the wife. A long staff danced up and down the chimney. The man's wife put the staff in the fire, but she could not hold it there, insomuch as it would forcibly fly out. Yet ado, with joint strength they made it to burn. A chair flew about, and at last lighted on the table, where victuals stood ready to eat, and was likely to spoil all, only by a nimble catching that saved some of their meat. A chest was removed from place to place, no hand touching it. 2 keys would fly about, making a loud noise by knocking against each other. As they lay in bed with their little boy between them, a great stone from the floor of the loft was thrown upon the man's stomach, and he turning it and he turning it down upon the floor, it was once more thrown upon him. Good Lord. That sounds like an awful house to live in. On January 23rd, 1680, his inkhorn was taken away from him while he was writing. He was keeping a diary of these events, and when by all his seeking he could not find it, at last he saw it drop out of the air down by the fire. February 2nd, while he and his boy were eating of cheese, the pieces which he cut were wrested from them. But as for the boy, he was a great sufferer in these afflictions, for on the 18th of December he, sitting by his grandfather, was hurried into great motions. The man made him stand between his legs, but the chair danced up and down, and was like to have cast both man and boy into the fire, and the child was tossed about in such a manner as that they feared his brains would have been beaten out. Gosh. Holy cow. That's crazy. Um, yeah, golly. All these contortions of the boy were apparently what M. Charcot calls clownisms. This got a note and it says disease of the nervous system. It's got some reference, London, 1890. Um, when taken to a doctor's house, the boy was free of disturbances, which returned with his return home. He barked like a dog, clucked like a hen, talked nonsense about Powell, who pinned him. While he was in bed with the old people, a pot with its contents was thrown upon them. I don't know what that means. While he was in bed with the old people, this is in quotations, a pot with its contents was thrown upon them. They were clutched by hands, like Mr. and Mrs. C. Once a voice was heard singing, "Revenge, revenge is sweet." What? Oh my gosh. It's terrifying. Once a voice was heard singing, "Revenge, revenge is sweet." Finally, a mate of ship came, declaring that the grandmother was not rightly suspected as a witch, and offered, if he were left alone with the boy, to cure him. The mate came next day betimes, and the boy was with him till night, since which time his house, more saith, has not been molested with evil spirits. Shoo. Probably the mate used a rope's end. The boy was more speedily cured than Mr. H. What does that even mean? I don't understand what's happening. Probably the mate used a rope's end. Then it's got a colon. The boy was more speedily cured than Mr. H. The mate came next day betimes, and the boy was with him till night, since which time his house, more saith, has not been molested with evil spirits. I don't understand. What is that implying, that he killed the boy? Probably the mate used a rope's end. What does that even mean? If anyone wants to join, you're more than welcome. It looks like some people were watching for a little bit, and then they dropped off. But yeah, I'll keep reading because people can always listen back later. I can listen back later. Sorry if this isn't making sense to me. Hopefully, it's making sense to other people. It's interesting to me, at least, because I mean, I believe all this stuff most definitely. Because I've seen crazy stuff like this before. Not quite like exactly like this, but stuff probably just as shocking in a lot of ways. Personally, and my dad actually has a lot of stories in the house they grew up in. Um, they had a lot of crazy stuff happening, like poltergeist activity, sort of. Um, and then finally, I think was kind of I think it was kind of the last straw was the curtain set on fire. They had the master bedroom where like my grandmother and my grandfather, my dad's parents were there, and above their bed there was like curtains that went up and like over their bedstead, and the curtains just lit. on fire. They said they lit on fire like on one end, and the fire burnt up, and then one burned across, and then burnt down the curtains, and like didn't burn anything else. Really weird, weird stuff. The phenomena are those of droll or buffooning wights, as ere Kirk said, and no man can doubt that the boy was at the bottom of the whole affair. But whether he was capable, when well in conscience, of such diversions is another question. Children like him produced the famous witch mania in New England. We have here, undeniably, a well recorded case analogous to those of Mr. H, and a modern case of bell ringing, heavy thumps, and movement of objects. The agent was a young girl who had never been out to service before, and who passed the night in a state of wildly agitated, that's that word again, somnambulism. I'm gonna look that up. I don't even know what that word is. Sorry. Somnambulism. Sleepwalking. Okay. Good to know. I need Cal here. He can tell me what these words mean. All right. In the past night, in a state of wildly agitated sleepwalking, repeating the whole of the service for the day. Mather gives several other examples in which motives for trickery are manifest, while we hear nothing of an epileptic or hysterical patient. In the majority of instances, ancient or modern, children are the agents. Thus we have physical phenomena obtained in a family circle, that of Mr. and Mrs. Davis with their children at Rio Janeiro. I don't know where that is. The time was 1888. Ooh, nice number. Curiosity had been caused by the notorious Henry Slade. There were touches and grasps of hand. A table ran after me and attempted to hem me in, when only see, a little girl was in the room. As far as I could see, she did not even touch the table. The chair of Amy was moved about, like that of Master Morse 200 years earlier. A table jumped into the laps of the public. What does that mean? There were raps and thumps which seemed to shake the whole building. Lights floated about. A slate covered with flour was placed on C's lap. Her hands lay on the table. Marks of fingers came on the flour, and, in answer to request, the mark of a naked baby foot. The children present were wearing laced boots, and we are not told that little Amy was under the table. Bluish lights and the phantasm of a dog were seen. All this answers to an ancient example. The disturbances in Mr. Wesley's house at Epworth, December 1715 to January 1716. The house was a new one, rebuilt in 1709. We have Mr. Samuel Wesley's journal, with many contemporary letters from members of the family, and later reminiscences. Oh my gosh. There were lively girls in the house, and two servants, a maid and a man, recently engaged. The disturbances began with groanings, then came knockings, which flitted about the house. Mr. Wesley heard nothing till December 21st. The knocks replied to those made by the family, but they never could imitate the sounds. Mr. Wesley and Emily saw an object like a badger run from under bed and vanish. The mastiff was much alarmed by the sounds. Mr. Wesley was thrice pushed by invisible power. The bogey was a Jacobite, and was Mr. Wesley. What? Mr. Wesley was for King George. Okay. The bogey was a Jacobite, as was Mr. Wesley, Mr. Wesley was for King George. Like, what does the sentence even mean? The knocks were violent when that usurper was prayed for. Is that why he calls him a Jacobite? Because usurper? Because Jacob takes the heel of his brother? I don't understand why he's using that term. The knocks were violent when that usurper was prayed for. They did not try praying for King James. Robin, the servant, saw a handmill work violently. Not vexed me, but that it was empty, I thought. This is in quotation. So, quote, not vexed me, but that it was empty. I thought, had it but been full of malt, he might have ground his heart out for me, unquote. But this was a jocose, not an industrious devil. Like, what are all these terms? I love hearing these terms, but I don't know what they mean. Jocose, Jocose. I'll Google that one too. Joc. Well, either way, I'm fun doing this. Full or humorous. So I guess it's a jocose allusion. So, were they saying this spirit is just like joking and not an industrious devil? Robin called it Old Jeffrey, after a gentleman lately dead. The family called it Geoffrey, unless one name is a mere misspelling. It seemed to sweep after Nancy Wesley when she swept the chambers. She thought he might have done it for her and saved her the trouble. That's in quotes. Quote, she thought he might have done it for her and saved her the trouble, end quote. Mrs. Wesley concealed the matter from her husband, quote, lest he should fancy it was against his own death, end quote. Okay. This belief in noises foretelling death is very common. Compare Scott's nocturnal disturbances at Abbotsford when Bullock, his agent in building it, was dying in London. The racket occurred on April 28th and 29th, 1818, and Scott examined the scene, quote, with Beardy's broadsword under my arm, end quote. Bullock died in Tenterden Street in London. Whether on April 28th or 29th, it is not easily to be ascertained. Quote, the noise resembled half a dozen men putting up boards and furniture, and nothing can be more certain than that there was nobody on the premises at the time. End quote. The noises used to follow Hetty Wesley and thump under her feet, as under those of C in Professor Alexander's narrative. Mr. Wesley's plate danced, quote, danced before him on the table a pretty while without anybody stirring the table, end quote. The disturbances quieted down in January, but recurred on March 31st. Similar phenomena had occurred long before in the family. Quote, the sound very often seemed in the air, in the middle of a room, nor could they ever make any such themselves by any contrivance. End quote. On February 16th, 1740, 23 years later, Emily writes to Jack about, quote, that wonderful thing called by us Geoffrey, that something calls on me against any extraordinary new affliction. What the heck? Hey Sandy, thanks for it. I don't know what he's talking about, to be honest. I'm reading this book some more, and it seems to me like he's just recounting a bunch of different stories. It started this part, so to recount a little bit, this part was it's part 5. It says fairies and physical research, and he started talking about browniedom, and then he kind of lumped it all into, or pixies, I guess. He's going, they're like different terms, but he basically kind of, I guess, categorized it as those who haunt the house. And it seems like he's just going through story after story, and he was talking about some people that were performing seances and had all this bad stuff happen to them. I think one of them died. And he's just kind of giving stories here and there of different occurrences of just, I guess, those who haunt the house. Brownies, poltergeists, pixies, things like that. And this one I'm reading through right now is they're talking about, I guess, some sort of spirit or poltergeist or brownie or whatever, that the bogey was a Jacobite, as was Mr. Wesley. Mr. Wesley was for King George. I don't know what that means. Anyway, that was the reference to the Jacobite thing, but I don't know what that means. But it seems like they're calling him Geoffrey. this spirit or whatever. Priestley styles this affair, quote, the best authenticated that is anywhere extant, end quote. He supposes it to have been, quote, a trick of the servants for mere amusement, unquote. The modus operandi is difficult to explain. We hear nothing of bad health or hysterics in the household. For our purpose, it is enough that a few incidents of this kind, however produced, might originate and keep alive the belief in brownies, and that shrewd and knavish sprite called Robin Goodfellow. This is in quotes, and it's like in the middle of the page, like it's quoting like poetry or something. That shrewd and knavish sprite called Robin Goodfellow, who, quote, frights the maidens of the villagery, skims milk, and sometimes labors in the quern. Okay. By a curious coincidence, we can show a case in which phenomena of the kind usually reported as occurring at seances and in examples like that of William Morse were actually accepted as manifestations of the Slaymaith or fairies. In his account of the disturbances in the Wesley family, Dr. Clark, the author, averred that B had himself witnessed similar events. I guess it's supposed to be he had himself. It thus became necessary to consult his life. In the history of my own life, says Dr. Clark, I have related this matter in sufficient detail. Unquote. Unluckily, in his life, I don't know why life is all like maybe it's a book he wrote because it's like capitalized in italics. Unlucky in his life, he gives scarce any details. Previous to sudden deaths in a family called Church, the phenomena of falling plates, heavy tread, and other noises occurred. Mr. Clark, quote, sat up one night in the kitchen and most distinctly heard the above noises, end quote. He was a born mystic, and even in childhood a reader of Cornelius Agrippa, and later of the Alchemist. But he records the instance of a woman who solemnly declared to Mr. Clark that a number of the gentle people, Slaymaith, occasionally frequented her house. And this quote, so this is in quotes, occasionally frequented her house. They often conversed with her, one of them putting its hands on her eyes during the time, which hands she represented, from the sensation she had, to be about the size of those of a child of 4 or 5 years of age. The family were worn down with these visits, and from the mention of touches of hand, it is pretty plain that we have to do the kind of sprite who pause people at seances. But these sprites are recognized. It's in parentheses. The scene is the north of Ireland, but these sprites are recognized as gentle people, folk of peace. The amusing thing is, this is the amusing thing. All right. The amusing thing is that Mr. Clark, while he believes in Sir Wesley's Geoffrey and in the supernatural origin of a noise in a kitchen, laughs at similar phenomena when assigned to fairies. That is kind of amusing, I guess. The amusing thing is that Mr. Clark, while he believes in Mr. Wesley's Geoffrey and in the supernatural origin of a noise in the kitchen, he laughs at similar phenomena when it is assigned to fairies. It is a mere difference of terminology. Yeah, we do that a lot. Just semantics, yes. Sorry, I need more soda. Oh, sorry. Sandy said more soda. King George and Bonnie Prince Charlie. I don't know what that is. Yes, they are bringing up the wars for the crown, Scotland and England. The sprite Robin Goodfellow Puck reference in Shakespeare. See, you know more about it than I do. I don't even know what he's talking about. Glad you're here. The wars. So Mr. Wesley. Oh, gosh. Mr. Wesley. That's for King George. We have Mr. Samuel Wesley's journal. I don't know. Is that from that movie that we all know and love? I can't remember the name of it. I'm drawing a blank. Gosh, I'm too tired. Whatever. It'll come to me later. Where did this leave off? Oh, mere difference of terminology. Another old example may be given. It is Alexander Telfair's true relation of disturbances at Rincroft in the parish of Rarick. The story is attested by the signatures of Ewart, minister of Kells in Galloway, Monteith, minister of Borg, Murdoch, minister of Cromshall, on Loch Ken, Spalding, minister of Parton, also by Loch Ken, Falconer, minister of Keltown, Mr. M. Leyland of Colleen, Lennox of Millhouse, and a number of farmers. These were all neighbors, and all attested to what they saw and heard. Robert Chambers says, there never, perhaps, was any mystic history better attested. Few narrators kind have included occurrences and appearances which it was more difficult to reconcile with the theory of trick or imposture. End quote. Mr. Telfair himself had been chaplain in 1687 to Sir Thomas Kirkpatrick of Closburn. He was then an Episcopalian. Andrew Mackey was a stonemason at Rarick. On March 7th, 1695, and for long after, stones began to fly about in his house by night and day. Quote, the stones which hit any person had not half their natural weight. End quote. I've heard of that before, actually, too. Mackey complained to Telfair, his minister, who entered the house and prayed. Nothing odd occurred. As he stood outside, he saw two little stones drop down on the croft. Then he was asked to return and was pelted inside the cottage. This was March 11. For a week there was no more trouble. Then the disturbances began again. Mr. Telfair was sent for, and was pelted, beaten with the staff, and heard loud knockings. Quote, that night, as I was at prayer, leaning on a bedside, I felt something lifting up my arm. I, casting my eyes thither, perceived a little white hand and arm from the elbow down, but presently it vanished. It evanished. Evanished? End quote. Quote again. There never was anything seen except that hand I saw, end quote, and an apparition of a boy in gray clothes. Sometimes the stoning went on in the open air. There were plenty of touchings, grippings, and scratchings. The door bar, a long heavy piece of squared wood, this is in quote, the door bar, a long piece of squared wood would go through the house as if a person were carrying it in their hand, yet nothing seen doing it, end quote. Here we compare in Proc SPR, February 1892, the story of a carpenter's shop at Swanland in Yorkshire, where pieces of wood were levitated into abnormal flight. No imposture was discovered, nor was the presence of any one person necessary. The minister of Kells and Crossmichael were pelted with stones of 8 pounds weight. That's kind of heavy. On April 6th, fireballs floated through the cottage. When ministers were present, quote, it made all the house shake, break a hole through the thatch, and poured in great stones, end quote. Quote, it handled the legs of some as with a man's hand, end quote. It hoisted Mr. Telfair, Lennox of Millhouse, and others off the ground. A sieve flew through the house. Mackey caught it, a force gripped it, and pulled the interior part out of the rim. A day of humiliation was solemnly kept in the parish, which only excited the emulation of the disturbing agent. Quote, it continued in a most fearful manner without intermission, end quote. Voices were heard which talked nonsense of a semi-scriptural kind. Finally, the thing died out in early May. By the way, on April 28th, quote, it pulled down the end of the house, all the stonework thereof. This is strange, man. This is a very odd case, as no suspicion is thrown on the children. The attestations of several witnesses are given, not only at the close, but for almost every separate incident. The vision of the white hand is agreeable. I don't even know what that means. The vision of the white hand is agreeable. I feel like I'm just not able to comprehend this stuff. I feel like it's probably something simple, and I just maybe the way it's written is just hard for me. The Devil of Glen Luce in Galloway was published by Sinclair in his Hydrostatics, of all places, in 1672, and again in Satan's Invisible World by Glanville in Sadducism's Triumphatus. These are all books. In his affair, a boy called Thomas, a son of the unlucky householder, was clearly the agent. The phenomena were stone throwing, beating with sticks, levitation of a plate, and a great deal of voices probably uttered by the aforesaid Thomas. The synod ordered a day of humiliation, 1655 through 56. The affair of the Drummer of Tedworth, 1661, is, or ought to be, too well known for quotation. The troubles began after Mr. Mompesson seized the drum of a vagrant musician. In the presence of a clergyman, chairs walked about the room of themselves. A bedstaff was thrown at the minister, so favorably that a lock of wool could not have fallen more softly. End quote. The children, as usual, were especially haunted. A jingling of money was common, as it also was at Epworth. Lights wandered about the house, "blue and glimmering." End quote. The noise was persistent in the woodwork of the children's beds, while their hands were outside. The knocks answered knocks made by visitors. There were divers other marvels. Oh, there were diverse other marvels. The drummer was suspected, but consciously or not, the children were probably the agents. They seemed to have been in their usual health. That's just weird. Why is that? I don't know. In Galashiel's date not given, loud knocks on the floor accompanied a hystero-epileptic girl wherever she sat. In bed, her body was so lifted up that many strong men were not able to keep it down. End quote. The minister, who would make nothing of her, was Mr. Wilkie. The girl was Margaret Wilson. This little parcel of strange stories may suffice to show that part of the fairy belief based on such incidents as still occur, or are reported to occur, just in the old fashion. It is for psychologists and physicians to ascertain how far, if at all, the incidents are produced by hysterical or epileptic or sleepwalking patients. Common forthright trickery is usually detected in paid mediums, but the trickery simulates real events or continues an old tradition form of impostor. The moral that parents should not allow their children to be present at seances hardly needs enforcing. Some of them may escape unharmed, but frightful injuries may be inflicted on health and on character. It's got a note here. Let's see. The phenomena discussed are most frequently connected with children who may be regarded either as mediums or impostors, conscious or unconscious. Professor Baird gives the case of a little girl whom he knew. She had raps wherever she went, even when alone with the professor, who made her stand with her hands against the wall at a great stretch of her arm, with muscles of the legs and arms all in tension. End quote. A brisk pattering of raps, and followed Professor Baird's request. But he also mentions a boy of juvenile piety who for 12 months deceived his father, a distinguished surgeon, and all his family by pretending spiritualistic manifestations, which appeared at first sight inexplicable until the cunning trickery of the lad was discovered. The only difference between these cases is that an outsider discovered trickery in one instance and not in another. This is the very ticklish kind of certainty, and it is plain that children can do a great deal in the way of mere imposture. The state of any young Wesley who might have been caught out is unenviable. Verily, Mr. Wesley could not have spared for his crying. I don't know. See, I don't even understand the notes. It does not help. Mr. Wesley, let's see. Mr. Wesley was a Jacobite? If so, he was for Prince Charlie to take the throne in Scotland. Yeah, maybe. I think he was using the term Jacobite as instead of like. It seemed like he was using it interchangeably with like a usurper, like how Jacob in the Bible kind of usurps the firstborn status of Esau. It seemed like he was kind of doing that. Heck, an essay of, I'm still in the introduction. I'm not even to. I don't even think I'm to Robert Kirk's. No, I'm not even to his thing yet. I'm still just trying to get through the introduction of this. It's cumbersome, and I'm sorry to all you who have listened. Like it's like a freaking like six chapter introduction. Like what the heck is going on? I was wondering because I'm like supposedly Robert Kirk was like I think it said 1600s or something was when he died. And then it's referencing all the stuff from like the 1800s. So I was like, how is this possible? But then I looked and I'm like, oh, I'm still in the introduction. But I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. Little fly in here of the introduction left. And then it begins. So maybe I'll just read to there. And this, I've already been going almost an hour. Anyway. All right. So maybe I'll do that and then just stop. I don't know. Usurper is the word for this in Scottish history. What page am I on? It says page 29. I don't know. I mean, I don't have like a online PDF or anything, so I don't know. I don't know if you're trying to follow along. I don't. Maybe I could have looked up a link. I didn't even think. Anyway, I'll continue. Part 6: Second Sight and Telepathy. We have already hinted that events of an ordinary kind, illusions, cases of mistaken identity, or hallucination are probably the groundwork and part of the Highland belief in the second sight. Of course, if a certain proportion of hallucinations were or could be taken for veridical, I don't know why that's in quotations, veridical, attention would be given to these alone, the others would be neglected. The Physical Society has collected and examined hundreds of these cases in modern life. The Society may find out, experimentally, whether second sight can be acquired in the manner described by Mr. Kirk, whether by the hair tether or by merely putting the foot under that of a seer. Thus, contact is used in thought reading, as in second sight, the seer by contact communicates hallucination. Second sight itself is now called telepathy, which, however, does not essentially advance our knowledge of the subject. Sorry. I want to read that again. Second sight itself is now called telepathy, which, however, does not essentially advance our knowledge of the subject. It is either very common, or people who choose to claim the possession of it are very common. In our society, it is mere matter for idle tales. In the Highlands, second sight was a belief in a system. That's kind of in our society, it is a mere matter for idle tales. In the Highlands, the second sight was a belief in a system. I'm highlighting that. Are you a believer? Do you have to be Scottish in the Highlands? Mr. Pepys and Dr. Johnson investigated the matter, and Dr. Johnson came away open to question, unconvinced. The Physical Society is now examining second sight in the Highlands. It is interesting to learn that the Presbyterian seers justified their visions out of the Bible, which also justified the burning of these gifted men on occasion. Okay. It is interesting to learn that the Presbyterian seers justified their visions out of the Bible, which also justified the burning of these gifted men on occasion. So they justified it seeing from the scriptures in the Bible, and then other people also justified burning the seers from the same Bible. Ain't that the truth? It happens. Let's see. Mr. Kirk is tolerant enough to ascribe their visions in a bounty of providence. This may have passed north of the Highland line, but in Fife and the south the seers would speedily have been accommodated with a stake and tar barrel. The writings of Woodrow and Mr. Robert Blair of St. Andrews prove that if a savory preacher wrought marvels, he was inspired, but if an amateur did the very same thing, prophesied, healed diseases, and so forth, he or she was likely to be haled before the presbytery and possibly dragged to the stake. What up, dude?
Hi, Jason.
Hey,
Sorry.
man.
I don't want to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I love the melon hat. This thing's amazing.
I don't even know what you're up to besides reading, right?
Yeah, I've just been reading for like an hour. I've been reading this book about the fairies, the secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns, and Fairies.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm almost to the introduction. It hurts.
I would love to listen. I just wanted to join you. I saw you were alone. So
Oh, well, thanks, man. That's comforting. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, how's your day been?
It's been good. I'm just planting little mustard
Nice.
plants. So
Sweet.
it's time to up pot everything. So there's just a lot to do.
Yeah.
And I'm staying up late most nights trying to get some stuff done. And I tried calling my buddy Aiden, and he's across the country, and they're about to sit down for dinner. So I was like, hey, I'll hop on with Jason.
Thanks. Thanks, man. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I wish I was there to help you do something. I need some more like chores to do. As you see, I've been on the internet too much today.
Are you still on the road?
No, I'm back. I was actually talking to my dad today because I was like, because with my job, it's like it's been so slow, and it seems like it keeps kind of getting slower. And
yeah,
it's kind of nice because it's like especially when I'm doing stuff like with my sister's ministry or when I'm traveling or if I'm in India and we're getting ready to go to Africa, like I leave on Tuesday. It's like in less than a week. Yeah, and so I'll be over there, so it'll be nice because it's like, well, I can work remotely. I can do like just a little bit of work per day, and then I probably won't be spending as much because I'll be over there, like, and then, but so it's nice when that's the case. But then, like while I'm at home, it's like I want to travel in the RV. It's like I can't afford it now because I can't afford the gas, and so I've just been. Once I got back here, I drove back up from Florida. I've just been parked at my parents' house, and then I've been just kind of chilling. And that's the thing. I was talking to my dad because I was debating on, I was like, I don't mind looking for a second job. It's just like, it's hard to, I don't really know what to do because it's like, I have to ask for so much time off because I have all these trips. Yeah. Like I'm going to Africa for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to India for 2 weeks, and then I'm supposed to go to Honduras, and then I'm supposed to go back to India. And I'm like, that's just this year. Like what job? Like who's gonna hire me to train me so I could just like leave them half the time?
You need
so I'm like
super ultra convenient mobile jobs that you can do from anywhere in the world or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing too is I was like thinking, well, I could maybe try to take a little bit of money that I have, put a down payment on a house, and then rent it out, and maybe get some cash flow that way as kind of like a second job. But then the problem is, the reason I don't want to do that is because there's like some of the kids in India, well, they're not really kids anymore. They're like college age, and one of the girls, she's like I think like 26, And they kind of want to start looking at maybe coming to school somewhere in the U.S. But usually, if that's the case, kind of have to front their tuition.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want to take the money I have saved up and go put it on a down payment on a house, and then one of them get accepted, and then it not be there. So it's just like, I don't know what to do. I just want my band to get famous, and then we'll just be rich, and then
and then you can literally front the tuition of like multiple students from around the world.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just get famous, and I'll just fly over India in my helicopter and throw my bags of money.
Oh,
The Indian government would probably be so mad. I think they have like enough like pride in their own government that they'd probably be mad if some rich American was just throwing money out or something.
Yeah.
They'd
Yeah.
probably
They
be
like,
we don't need you.
Doing? You think we need your money? Yeah, right. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how long have you been? Okay, I don't want to distract from the conversation. You've got
No, it's okay. I only got a little bit more, and we can finish that, or I can finish that after you go. It won't take me long. It's only like maybe 15 minutes. I only got a few
I was
more pages.
my only question was like, how long have you been doing like missions like that?
Since my dog died. 2019. Yeah, that's the only. I didn't do any missions before that. I never even wanted to. A lot of times, I remember being kind of freaking. I guess maybe I wasn't resentful. That's not the right word. I guess hardened against missions, because I'd just be like, people raise money and then they just go on vacation. Some of them kind of end up being that way. Like, if you're honest, and they don't even get planned that way. Like, it's just like you go there. It's always unexpected what you go there to do. And so I've gone some places and we get there and we're like, the stuff we planned is not available, or it gets canceled or something. And then you're like, well, what do we do now? Yeah. So yeah, I never really, like all the missions trips, like growing up in church, I just wouldn't go on them because I'd just be like, I never felt like I should. And then I was like, I don't want to take anybody's money if I don't feel like I should go. And so I never did it. Then this one to Africa, I think, will be the first one that I'm not paying for, because my sister said she wanted to cover it. Like, I guess I think my grandfather donated some money and stuff, and so she said she just wanted to use that money. Yeah. So, which is nice, because I don't even, dude, even just getting the freaking vaccine was like $350. It's insane, and I had to get it, like, because it's yellow fever or something. Like, you can't get in there without it. So otherwise, I just take my chances. Just be like, let's just roll the dice, see what happens.
Yeah. Where can I ask where you're going to be in Africa in the next like couple weeks?
Uganda.
Nice.
You've been though, right? You've been to where in Africa?
I was only in South Africa. It was Mavusa, so it's like right on the border of Mozambique and South Africa. So
gotcha. I've heard of that.
Nice. Yeah, it was basically with my school. They had a garden on campus that was like a sister garden to what was happening in Mavusa, and it was a globalization and localization undergrad course and philosophy. So it was like it was bizarre trying to, like, it wasn't like a missions trip, but it was, because it was at a evangelical, like, Christian university that this took place through. So I'm
listening. I'm just gonna pee outside the door.
No, you should. Did you say pee?
It's just you. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I'll mute myself, don't worry.
Dude, I should tell you, my son is my son's potty trained as of this week. Oh yeah, you muted yourself. But I'm very proud of him.
Dude, yeah, the congratulations. Did he use the book? Once Upon a Potty?
no book, just like the just persuasion, I suppose.
Persuasion.
Yeah, the
Nice.
art of persuasion, and he just feels.
Were there stickers involved?
Well, there was Tootsie Rolls, but he actually choked on a Tootsie Roll. The first time he ever pooped on the toilet, he was so excited. I gave him a Tootsie Roll, a turd treat. That's what I call him, as a turd treat.
Yeah.
So I give him the turd treat, and he's jumping on the couch up and down, and he actually, for the first time, like legitimately started choking on a Tootsie Roll, and it freaked me out. I had to my wife was closer to him than I did, and she grabbed him and like immediately had him on his stomach and like pushing this. It was super scary.
Yeah.
So maybe no more Tootsie Rolls for a while. Like, I don't want to deprive him of Tootsie Rolls for the rest of his life, but
yeah, you don't want to be like Luke Thompson. Don't be like that, Luke.
Yeah, dude. Like, I get it. Tootsie Rolls are bad, bro. Like, they are good, but so is every sugar.
What a way to, like, that would be such a terrible way to go. Like, if you died chewing on a Tootsie Roll.
Yeah, dude, I don't. It doesn't. It's morbid.
Of all the candies, I'm the turd treat.
I know. Like, you're celebrating one of like your true accomplishments in life, because like I feel like that is honestly, I mean, it's very civilized, so it's like, how much do you want to reward just like becoming more civilized? But at the same time,
we don't give ourselves enough credit. It's very highbrow to be potty
trained. It is. It's super like, oh my god, it's so formalized now. Like, when it used to just be like, go grab your 6-inch ditch and take a, so it's not, it's kind of silly.
We all get treats in recognition for this. We've come a long way.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to keep on reading, you can. I feel like I keep on coming.
No, I don't. I'm more into talking anyway. I mean, unless you want me to keep on reading, you might.
Well, I am curious. I am curious what because I saw you talking about Second Sight, and Sandy actually had a really interesting comment up here. That was,
which one was
it? Second Sight was just simply called.
Was seen as imagined.
Or Second Sight was seen as the imagined.
Yeah,
and that literally hooked me, that comment, because I was like, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, well, say more. Say more about that. What do you mean? Just like using the imagination in Second Sight?
Yeah, because Second Sight is often seen as okay, so there's almost this way in which we throttle between seeing Second Sight as something that is, or even something like the inspiration as something that is like intuitive and more rooted in sort of like the human inspired, and the perhaps something like Second Sight, or what else? Inspiration as being more like divinely inspired, so like true inspiration. And I was trying to think of like the way the imagination comes into this conversation, at least for me, is that I don't know if there can be a hard and fast line drawn between inspiration and the imagination, because I think they're too tightly mapped onto each other. Like,
yeah.
And I'm not saying that there's a difference between the two, but I don't know where to begin to draw the line between something like the imagination, and like something that is imagined, and something that is inspired. And I mean like divinely inspired.
Yeah.
Because I see where God moves and works within something like the imagination. In sort of, in a sense, if you excuse the language, like God is father of the imagination or creator of the imagination, or like our imagination is always couched inside the imagination of God. And so there's a way in which there's no way to differentiate between something that's imagined and something that's inspired.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
At least in the sense that, like, perhaps our soul or our spirit could discern something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, that's all subjective once you get to that level.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, as long as I'm tracking with you, right? I just don't know. I don't know how to properly discern those things either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or navigate. I
So
mean, you're saying it's all, I mean, it does all, like, our imagination comes from the imagination of God. So in a way, it's like always inspired. But then,
yeah. But then there is that differentiation between, like, fancy and imagination as well. So there's also imagination that serves some other purpose beyond, I don't know, what would you say? The good, the true, beautiful, or?
I guess, I don't know. I mean, it's weird thinking about it. It's reminding me of the even the conversation I had with Fleetwood about the tarot and stuff. And because when you're talking about the imagination, I was thinking, like, well, I could, so if I just grabbed any image, imagination from, like, the realm of images, if I just gave myself or someone else just an image, like, to kind of almost meditate on, is that some sort of inspiration, or could it become some sort of inspiration? Like, if you just, I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, I mean, well, you could use, I mean, because then does that image become a symbol? And then does that symbol kind of turn into some sort of, like, prophetic word that speaks from God that leads you on? And then, but then I'm like, what's the difference between that and flipping over a tarot card? And then it's like, is it so,
Yeah,
you know, because you're just pulling out images. That's why yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting talking to him.
I completely agree. Like, our human, even in the very sense that, like, our language is incantation. Like, that's what our language is. All it is, I mean, you can look at the entire function of language as a magical operation, and it likely is to the degree that you allow that kind of language in its ambiguity to cover the whole spectrum. Like, that's
yeah,
I don't know. There's no way of, I don't know. There's,
yeah.
But I'm trying to think through other things that you're saying too. So, and I'm distracted by my seedling. So I'm probably not the best conversation partner, and I'm sorry.
No, this is great. I mean, I love doing this too. It's just, yeah, there's so much there. It just makes me think about just a lot of stuff. Like, even, like, I looked over and I got this. I can maybe show you. My sister gave me this, like, painting she bought some lady out in Oregon. I don't know. Can you see that?
Oh my goodness! Look at that. That's a snowy owl, barn owl
or something. Yeah, but it's even that. It's like there's just so much.
It's an image
in that image, yeah. And then, like, and even all the colors in it and everything, just all the stuff that you can get, like, that is out in the realm of imagination, just can deeply affect your conscious mind and subconscious. And so it was reminding me of this when we were talking earlier. I was on with Sandy and David, and he read some lyrics of this band. You'd probably like him. You know Me Without You, right? We've talked about that.
Yeah.
This band is called Listener or something like that.
I saw Listener in concert in Spokane.
What? No way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I
that's
saw,
cool.
dude, it was so cool. It was like this tiny, tiny, tiny little bar. And there
Nice.
was probably like 20 people there. And it was so cool.
That's cool. But yeah, just some of his songs too were just almost like in one of them he read. The guy was talking. He mentioned a bunch of different birds, and he went through and it was like saw and he gave a certain number of crow, and then he was like, and I saw it was like 9 owls, and he's just kind of invoking images, like really like pulling on your imagination, making you, but doing it in a very magical way, and almost like he was giving specifics too, which I thought was kind of strange. Like, because I was even thinking that, like, why did he choose 9 here? Like, why? And sometimes I think artists just choose that because it feels right, and there's like something more true in that, because it is kind of a weird sort of sixth sense or intuition. Like, and he said we were like, well, no, the number 9 just seems right, so there'd be 9 owls because it's just right. Like, you don't even know why, because there's just something to that. But then just even all of that is like building this with all these images, and you're bringing in like different birds, like, and they were all weirdly kind of birds that are associated with either the night or death or something like that. And so you're constantly like using the imagination, using different images to like, I don't know, to get at an idea, to kind of almost change the conscious mind and subconscious mind in a weird way. It was making me think about this dream I had. I didn't know whether to share it or not. I mentioned it to Cal and Mitch, and I still don't know what to do with it. It was weird.
No, I have to
I don't
ask
know if
you,
it's even related. What?
do you read into the substance of dreams, or do you take them with a grain of salt? Where are you at with, like, does God often speak to you through dream? Do you expect God
Um,
to speak to you through dream? Where?
I expect him to. I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I take him very seriously. Maybe not all of them. I wish I would remember them more. But especially the ones that stick with me. I usually very seriously now. I didn't used to, but I do
Yeah.
now. I'm just like, yeah, especially the ones that stick with me. And this one is just like this last one is just, I mean, it's strange. It's like wrecked me for days, to be honest. Like I mentioned it to Cal and Luke the day after, but it's probably been 2 or 3 days now, and like I don't, I just, uh, I keep getting like waves, like the heating in your chest. I don't know if you ever feel that, where
The
just
heat
like
in the chest.
it's just like a heaving, like it's just like this big, like an ocean. It feels like an ocean or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been happening to me. Like I'll just all of a sudden think of something, and I get that feeling from time to time, but it's been like really intense and almost like damn near unbearable at certain points. And I think it's from this dream. Like I think it just did something to my subconscious or something that I just, yeah, it was weird. But I mean, I've had lots of weird dreams that I do take seriously. And then even looking back, I take them more seriously because I'm just like, damn. Because I've had some dreams where, well, I don't know if they were dreams, but I've been like half awake and saw stuff. Like there was one I saw like some spirits at the foot of my bed, and it's just like, and then
Yeah.
where you're half awake, and then like 6 months later, you look back and you're like, oh, all that shit I went through for the past 6 months may have had something to do with that weird spirit that appeared at the foot of my bed and then vanished. It's like, did I just go through some crazy initiation? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, dude. I think oftentimes these things enter us long before we even know it, they become a part of us. Like before we
Yeah,
even recognize what happens. Rilke
yeah,
Rilke speaks to that, and even in regard to like sadnesses. And I don't know if, like, even what you described to me reminded me of the word reverence, like the weight that you felt,
yeah,
or like the gravity that you feel in regards to this dream, the weight that comes over you, that felt sense of like almost take your breath being taken away just by the thought of something. Um,
yeah,
like I had a lot of that in my own experiences in some of the most fragile times of my life, where it was like almost overwhelming. where
Mhm.
it struck you so deeply and the meaning was so like I didn't even know it was happening to me, but I was
Yeah.
something had entered me, and it was changing the way that I was thinking about all of reality,
Yeah.
and it was like while laying in a hammock reading a novel and like chain smoking cigarettes or something like that, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden somebody says something in that novel that resonates with one of the deepest truths that deep, like is
Yeah.
or what have you. But anyways, that a lot of that happened at a time where like I don't always have that sensibility with me, but when I know it returns, like for instance for you in that dream, it's like it's not something you ignore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. I definitely don't ignore them. I used to. I mean, I think for a long time, well, for a long time, I felt like I just didn't dream, and I hear a lot of people say that too. They'll say I don't dream, and I usually will say, well, just start writing them down. Because once I started doing that, I started dreaming again. And I need to do more of that because when I was writing them down, I started dreaming every night.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And was that when do you know like what time of your life that was?
I could probably that was probably like 2018, maybe 2017, somewhere around there. I started doing that, writing
Okay.
those down. And then I started dreaming a lot. And then I'm almost every night, like almost every time I would ask for it. Like it was almost like you're invoking Morpheus or something. Because I'd just be like, I remember I'd lay down in bed and I'd be like, I'd like to have some, just kind of go to the bed with that thought, like, man, I'd love to have some dreams tonight. And then if you're actually diligent to wake up and write them down, you'll just keep getting more and more, and they'll get more and more specific. And I remember, like, because I would just wake up and talk into my phone, like voice to text, and
Wow.
I would like have like paragraphs after a while of just like detailed dreams, that like I'd read through them the next day and I'm like, man, this is like crazy profound stuff. But I don't think there was any time where I didn't want to write them down. Like I would wake up in the night and I never wanted to. Like every single time it was like, this is the hardest thing. I can't speak right now. Like I'm not even writing. I'm just trying to talk in my phone. And every single time they just felt
The
they felt
word.
frivolous. Yeah, they would just seem like pointless. Like I remember I'd wake up and think this dream doesn't mean anything. I don't need to write this down, but I'd make myself do it. And then I'd read it the next day and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like why would I think this is like why would I like dismiss this?" And then
Yeah.
there's been other times, plenty of times where I think in my head, "Oh man, this dream is so good and so profound. I'm not going to forget this. There's no way I'll forget this." And then you wake up and you didn't write it down and it's gone. And you just can't. But yeah.
Yeah.
There. Have you always like reverenced dreams, or did you for a while not?
No, I would say that still, even to this day, I I have dreams, but I don't spend the time or put in the energy to even remember them. And oftentimes the dreams that I do remember are like they feel like they're the meaningless ones. They're like the ones that probably have to do with some kind of like insecurity or trauma. And I mean those are the ones that get uh, uh that's probably something to pay closer attention to be honest. But uh, they also are annoying to me because it's like
Yeah,
I know those things exist already, and I'm already trying to work through them, and it's like,
that's
uh,
interesting.
and it's like why are you still rearing your ugly head in my dream space? Get out of here! This is supposed to be for like better things.
That's interesting. I don't think. Well, it's interesting because like you find them annoying and they come up like almost like your subconscious is trying to tell you stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I've had dreams in the past, but they were maybe more like haunting ones. I don't think I have a dream that annoys me at all anymore. Like even nightmares, I freaking love them. I just like I love just being in dreams. I love it.
Yeah.
Because I think the reason I like nightmares is because I still feel like they're messages from God, like there's some sort of warning or something. But I can
Yeah.
see how ones about your character would be obnoxious.
Yeah, that's probably what they are. It's mostly about my character. But yeah, I hear you. I guess I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe perhaps I don't view every dream as like a gift in the way that I should, you know? Um, because oftentimes we view our unconscious, and this is probably a modernist sort of like understanding of the unconscious, I should say, not consciousness, but the unconscious, as
Yeah,
being like a place of um, lots of mirrors and torments, kind of like a fun house,
yeah,
like the
yeah,
unconscious is being a place where chaos reigns rather than like order, and
yeah, yeah.
uh, but at the same time, it's like I'm not trying to say that that's a bad thing, because I understand um, how
I love.
necessary it is to encounter that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. Like, I wonder how. Really, I don't know. It's just interesting thinking about this and the types of different dreams people have because like I said, at this point in my life, and I don't know if it's just maybe because of where I am or why, I don't know that I don't have dreams like I used to. Like I remember being when I first started college and stuff, I had dreams of drowning all the time. Like I mean, it was like just crazy
Dreams
amounts.
of
I would just dream
dreams of drowning.
drowning. Yeah, I would drown. Like it was freaking awful. And now, like, and I don't think I had a fear of drowning until I started having those dreams, and then, and then, yeah, I don't know when they stopped, but they stopped, and I mean, I haven't had any since I lived in Knoxville. I don't think, which has been, I mean, and it's crazy. And then so what's even weird? I mean, well, even last like well not last night, but the dream I mentioned the other that I had the other night was all like I was just in the sea. I was in the ocean and stuff. And I was underwater for a lot of it too, but like none of it was drowning. Like I wasn't drowning at all. It was just like all I can describe it was just peace. Perfect, perfect peace. And I think it was maybe a lot related to death. The more I think about it, the more it was, which is kind of I still don't know what to do with because it was just like uh I didn't I didn't want to come out of the dream, and I still want to go back into the dream. It was perfect. I mean, that's what I told Mitch and Cal. I was like, I could have floated on that sea forever. Like it was just dark and cold, and just perfect. It was just, and there was like everything was there. Like the sharks were there. Like things were there that should have been scary, but it was just like every single emotion was just like present but just somehow like wrapped up in awe because of the vastness of it, and you just floated there. And I was like, but it was like that was so different from drowning. Like like I used to have these dreams of drowning in underwater, and it's like then I was just floating in it, just kind of almost one with it. It was just weird. And
Yeah.
so my dreams are different now, but it's weird because I wonder like what what other people often experience
In their
in
dream
that.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know my sister's had some where her teeth fell out, and I heard that's a common thing. Like I think that's real stress a lot.
Yeah.
People report teeth falling out, and that doesn't sound fun. But I don't know.
I was just talking to my buddy who had like 6 teeth pulled because he grinds his teeth in the
Oh,
middle of the night. That sounds like
hey.
another kind of hell. But
Yeah, I wonder what causes that though, like, and how you get rid of that. Like, I would almost think if that's the case, then you should pay attention to your dreams. Because like you said, your subconscious is telling you something.
yeah,
So
I
like if
would.
you want to stop having the bad dreams, then pay attention to them, you know?
Yeah. Oh no, I think that's absolutely right. The only way up is the way through. So,
Yeah.
um,
Do you ever have those dreams you don't want to come out of that you just like
yes.
you know,
And
yeah.
that's I was gonna say that earlier. It's not as if I don't have a single blissful dream in all the whole dreamscape. I think what it is they're harder to remember. Where the terrifying ones leave an imprint on your memory that might be slightly more memorable in your waking
Yeah.
consciousness. Where the bliss ones, you might have like this lament that you have to awaken into consciousness. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
get lots of I mean, I feel like a lot of my dreams now, well, not a lot of them, but the ones I don't even remember all the details of them or remember that much of them, but sometimes I have those dreams where like wake up and those ones where you don't want to wake up because you're like I just want to keep going back into the dream. But then I've had other ones where I've woken up afterwards and I'm like I know I just came out of the best dream I've ever had in my life and I can't remember any of it. And I just like yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, and I think that's where I think there's so much there that I don't know why. Why am I waiting to do the disciplined thing of writing it down? Because
well,
like you said, it's going to be torture. Like you wake
yeah,
up in the middle of the night and you have to like the text to speech thing. That's smart. That's like
yeah,
that's
or
where
even just do voice memos or something, you know.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
then
I would
also
always
like I can just imagine waking up and like being right next to my wife while I'm like whispering into my phone like about my dream.
dude, even see, I'm by myself, but even doing voice to text, like you're still like waking up. I'd get these messages back, and I'd be like, "What the hell does this say?" Because you're like mumbling stuff, and it's like trying to make sense of it. And it's got to piece it all together. But yeah, I don't know, but there's because even while we were talking, it's kind of like there is something special to not writing them down too. I think, though,
Yeah.
you know. I think writing them down is definitely a good practice to do if you're trying to remember them and trying to have more dreams. But I think there is something to where just like you can just kind of let it go and know, like I just mentioned, like where you wake up out of a dream and you know you just had the best dream ever, and you're like, man, I was with all my lost loved ones all night long, and I can't remember any of it because you just wake up with like that feeling of just like, man, that was just like I just came from somewhere special,
Yeah.
and my day just like your day just feels just like shalom or something. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like if you were to remember that, it would almost kill it or something. You know, it's like it's
Yeah.
nice that it did its work on your subconscious rather than your conscious mind, and you can just let that be, and it'll affect. That's why I think it's just so freaking crazy, man. Like you can have a dream that you don't even remember that will affect how you act the next day. Just insane.
Do you think that there's a difference between like waking? I mean, I think this is an obvious thing to say, but like waking imagination and like sleeping imagination. And is it the imagination that's functioning? And is it more permeable, like in a unconscious state? Okay,
I don't
sorry,
know.
that was way too much of a question, but
No, that's a good question. I just don't know that I have an answer. That's really interesting.
I don't.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
either.
that's really interesting. Like the waking one almost seems to me like I'd have to use it weirdly in kind of a form of meditation for it to
Yeah,
kind of affect my subconscious enough. But I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know either. That's why I ask.
Well, we'll should link. Maybe I'll get dreaming about it tonight. Then I'll know the answer. Then forget it when I wake up.
That's perfect. Yeah. Don't no voice memos tonight. You get sound sleep.
An
No
angel will
wake up
tell
in the
me,
middle
and
of
I'll
the
be
night.
like, I should write that down. Oh,
Yeah. I have not had a full night's sleep in like
three.
at least 4 months now.
Oh man, that's rough.
But that's just baby. Baby wakes you up.
Yeah. Do you travel a lot?
No,
Probably
not
not anymore. Not at all.
no. Like I'm a homebody, very much a
Yeah.
homebody. So like I travel like a half an hour to an hour some days to go to a job site and then come home. But beyond that, nah, that's about my radius.
Dang.
Uh,
Nice. That's nice.
and then yeah, and then I'm home by 4 o'clock most days, and home on the weekends, and that's the life I want to live.
Good.
So I
Nice.
just don't really compromise on it. But
How's your house? Do you have a did you get everything like fixed up or most of it that you wanted?
yeah, well, it was like just before baby came. In fact, I was still hooking up the radiant heat to the back half of the house once baby made her arrival, and then yeah, tried to expedite that just before winter struck, and the first snowstorm, and so basically we got our house livable just in
Hmm.
time. So and I haven't had to really worry about it since. So the next big thing
Laying that
is
carpet behind you. Is that carpet?
yeah, there is, well, the carpet pad. Yeah. But
Yeah. Have you laid carpet before?
yeah, I just did
Yeah.
a job where I did a couple carpet
Dang.
bedrooms.
That's
I
cool. You
don't
know how to do that. I don't remember. I think I've maybe done it once.
Yeah, I mean it's not like I can do complicated stuff. Like in fact, probably the only reason why I took the last job was I didn't have to iron in any seams, because ironing in seams is like my least
Is that where you
favorite.
knew that you used the knee thing and you kick it with your knee?
No, this is like the glue tape that goes underneath
Oh,
of carpet, and then you use an iron to
oh,
basically
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I did
you
that once.
iron in like two pieces of carpet that come together, and then you have to like make it look absolutely seamless. So the trick is
Yeah,
to have like a perfect line meeting up with another perfect line, and it's just like it is not
yeah,
it's a headache, but I've done it successfully a few times, but it's not like I'm going to break that out on a customer's home. I'll
yeah.
leave that to the carpet professionals.
Do you have, now that you have your house livable, do you have certain rooms that are like dedicated spaces?
Did you say dedicated kid spaces?
Or just no dedicated spaces in
Oh,
general? Like,
yeah.
I guess the reason I was asked because we were talking about dreams, and I was gonna ask. That's why I asked about travel, because I feel like I've mentioned this recently. Like, I feel like I get, maybe it's more vivid, maybe they're weirder. I'm not sure. My dreams seem different when I travel. I
Yeah.
feel like I have more of them. They're almost like more intense. I don't really know. But I
I buy.
didn't know if maybe if that happens at home too, like if you had like a certain like or a certain space, or if you slept in another room, if it would like if you've experienced any of that stuff or
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I uh, I have no idea. There are dedicated spaces, but I don't even know what it's like to sleep on the upper level of this home yet, because there's no heating in the upper level. So
oh yeah.
I have to um, figure
Cold
out.
as balls.
Yeah, I guess the people that lived here prior just used like electric blankets. That's what I asked. I was like, "What did you guys lived upstairs? What did you?" Because I met the previous owners of this house.
Oh my gosh.
They
Yeah.
came
Those
and
things, those are nice sometimes. If you get a good
yeah,
one, they're nice. Yeah.
it was bizarre. It was a strange experience, and I showed her the house and I showed her what we were doing with it, and she cried and cried and cried and cried, and but I
That's
let her
cool.
walk through the house, and it was like going through like a mourning and grieving process with her. But I
So
talked
the
with
seller,
her. Yeah,
was it an old
yeah.
lady? Is that what you're saying? It was the old lady?
It was her mother who died, and
Oh,
she was selling the house with
yeah.
her brother. Yeah.
Have you seen
So
the mother?
I met her brother and I met her, and it was
Yeah, have you met her mother? As her ghost
no.
lingered in the house?
Well, I don't know.
You don't
I
know.
don't know. There's a lot of ruckus upstairs.
Oh
Um,
man,
and
really? That's creepy.
I don't know what's going on, but I've prayed over all the rooms, and
Yeah, it's good.
I've blessed them, and I don't I've asked whatever would be there that could, you know, I don't want to assume that it wishes us harm, because I would whatever presence is there, it's just like I didn't see it as a threat, but I also was like, I don't know.
Yeah. I told you about when I had dreams of my house after I sold it, right?
You had dreams of it afterwards?
Yeah, my house. Yeah. Did I not tell you this?
I knew
I think
that
it was.
you
I
had
know.
strange experiences in that house.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. When I lived there, yeah, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there was all sorts of weird spirit stuff that happened in there. But though, like after I sold it, um, this like made me really rethink stuff too. Like I had at least twice, maybe more times than that. I was back. I would go to bed at night and I'd be back in that house, and it made me think. I'm not sure if I was doing this, but it made me think about astral projection. And when people talk about that, like you leave your body and go somewhere else, because I would be in my house, like that I had sold, and I remember being absolutely freaking terrified. Like I can't describe the fear. Like it was like your worst nightmare. Like I remember being so scared because I knew it was not my house anymore, and the people whose house it was now, that they were getting ready to come home, and I was in my house like so scared that they were gonna find me still there, and it was
Oh
weird.
my.
It was like I was haunting my old house. It was really weird, and I still like wonder to this day. I'm like, I wonder if like these people are in this house being like, do you feel like someone's watching us? Some weird like it's just weird, man. It was like I was a ghost, and that's why I was just wondering. Like, I think there's something that does happen with memory, and I've heard people talk about ghosts as like ghosts can be like an imprint of a memory in a place. But I almost think it's more than that, especially after I had those experiences. I was like, there's a weird connection that I still had with that place where I kept reappearing there even in my dreams, but it was so intense where I really wonder if there was like if I was actually there. I mean, because I was actually there, just not physically
And
there.
yeah,
But
just
my conscious mind was so there, and it was so scary. I just remember being both times I was there. I was just like this fear of just like I got to get out of this house before they find me. Like I got to they're gonna find me and be so mad. I gotta. It was yeah, it was terrifying. I don't know.
you never told me that part of that experience, but it's interesting that you link it to, I don't know, some kind of like almost like the power of memory might be the way that I would say it, because even my I'm thinking of my son, like when we moved to this house, he was still so attached to the old house, even though like he will probably have no memory of this move whatsoever. But for him, he would be like, no, I don't want to go to the new house, I want the old house, and so it was just like
Yeah,
traumatic for him to be like moved from one house to the next, even though, like I said, he'll have likely no memory or working memory or like cognizant memory of it. But
yeah.
um, like he was just attached to the old house. and you could see why. Like, you live so much of your life in a place
Yeah.
like that. Like, it does. I would, and so when I think about that, and I think about attachments, and I think that's even the language that people use when they talk about hauntings, even in a less like spooky sense.
Yeah.
There's a way in which I think a lot of people talk about hauntings as being like spirits attached
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Like a ghost can't let go of something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it lingers there. Yeah. And that's
So
kind
it's
of
like,
like what it felt I was doing. It was weird.
yeah.
So weird.
And so you became the
It felt
season.
like I was
Jason
haunting
became a
that
ghost.
house. That's what it felt like. Yeah. It felt like I was haunting the house. That is a traumatic. Like I do think it's kind of a traumatic experience. Like even your son going through it. Like you said, he won't remember it, but it is. Yeah, it's weird because that is your home. That's like all your stability. It becomes your life in a way. And then when you are taken from it, you're just so all your stability is gone for at least for a little bit till you can settle in a new place.
Yeah. You have to find a place of belonging again. And
Mhm.
that does, you might have your family there, but yeah, it is weird. Even just like leaving your home in general as a motif that occurs later on in life, like when you're past the age of adolescence and you move into adulthood, usually that's marked by the leaving of your home. Um, but it's usually in the effort to find a new home, but it's not your old home. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's like finding a place of belonging when, but also like grieving the loss of belonging at the same
Mhm.
time. So it's
Yeah.
like a new sense of belonging that you're seeking.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to get over the hump of also grieving the loss of belonging too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe your upstairs is a old lady still lingering around.
I know,
Just
I know. I
kidding.
think about it,
It's
but
weird, but the weird thing too is like even if it doesn't mean you harm, I guess it's like it still shouldn't be there. That's the thing.
yeah,
It's like this is a new house for you and your family. Like case, like I didn't. If I sold my house, it's not my house anymore. I shouldn't be there. I shouldn't be
yeah.
attached to it. It's for someone else to make it their home now. You know.
No, I completely agree with that. You make a valid point. Even at a
Ghost.
practical level, it's like this is mine now.
Yeah. Get out of here, you old bag. That's cool though. I mean, that's really comforting that she got to go through that process, like grieving with you when she saw what you were doing. I mean, that's really special.
We
It's
had to
nice to know. It's nice to know you're selling your house, especially if you care about your house. It's nice to know you're selling it to good people and a good family and stuff.
and like I gave her my number because she was like, I might have you come over and do a backsplash on my kitchen. And I was like, okay. And so I'm going over there. I got to go
Oh
over there sometime and give her an estimate. But it's also like, do I want to keep this relationship open with the previous homeowner? I kind of am like, yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. But also at the same time, throw caution to the wind sometimes. She was a delightful lady. She had a lovely poodle. And we we talked about horses for quite some time because she used to keep a pony on this property. And she told me all about her pet pony. And I was like, how you kept a pony in the shed? Yeah, she kept a pony in the
oh
shed.
man,
And it
oh
was like
man,
it's
nice.
crazy. But
That should be the quote of this conversation. Throw caution to the wind sometimes. She was a delightful lady. She had a poodle.
she was a
It's
delightful lady.
I told
Yeah.
you when I moved into my house, my neighbors. Did I tell you about all the dogs they had and the goats and everything? I probably told you that story. They would go out of their house. Yeah,
Wait,
that's intense.
when you moved out of this house, you had goats there too?
No, so when I moved into my house, my neighbors, my next door neighbors that were there at the time, she had a breed of dogs. She Mickey's because she made up a new breed. And so they were just like these ratty. There were at least 12 of them. I counted that all at one time, and they just these little yappy dogs that were always in her front yard, running in and out of her house, of her dog door. And then for a while, she had goats, and her goats would be in the front yard too. And I remember Trent, me and Trent. And it was back when we were in Bearhound the first time, and we were having this at my house, and so me and Trent were standing outside. I think we were smoking a cigarette or something, and Trent was just looking at the goats, and he was like, "Do the goats go in the house too?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then we just watched, and all the goats just went in the dog door. And supposedly, like before I moved there, she actually was keeping a horse in the house for a while. Like they had a horse that would go in and out of the house. That's what I was told. And it just reminded me when you said the lady had a pony. Like that's what I was told. And then I don't know. I don't know, but that house was just, it was, I know it had to have been a wreck because those dogs were a wreck.
You didn't get to know your neighbor?
I never went in their house though, but I knew him. She was, her husband was very quiet and nice. He was a little man. She was probably like twice his size, like taller than him and just big lady. And she always wore a muumuu. A really gross. Oh my gosh, you don't know what a muumuu is? It's like a big nightgown, basically. It's like a big giant T-shirt to sleep in.
They call those muumuus?
Yeah. And it was just old. It was just the old, like all of them were just like gross. Like she had been wearing them for 3 days straight, and they had like holes in them, and like I mean, some of them even had holes like around the butt area, and you could like see her underwear. It was just like, yeah, I knew her, but like we weren't.
This is in Tennessee.
Close. Yeah, this is in Tennessee. This is living in the country, and then they moved further out into the country. But like probably an hour and a half away. And then the neighbor that bought the house after them, someone bought it, and I think they fixed it up and then sold it again. And then the guy that moved into it before I left, it seemed like he kind of had a situation like me. Like he moved in, it was just him, a young single with his dog. And then I was moving out of mine because it's like, good luck to you, man. And then, yeah. And so he had that house, and I think it was all right. Yeah. It was interesting neighborhood. It was some interesting neighbors. It's just country people, really, really country people.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that
I don't know who this is. Necking Sangma Magre. What's that? I don't know.
Hello, check, Coleman, check, sir. You thumbs up. I had to say it like that, I guess.
Good. Common check, sir. You. Who is that? I'm glad you're here.
Hello there.
Do you know some Hindi?
Me?
No, I'm asking Necking Sangma Magre. I don't know if that's how you say that. Sangma sounds Hindu. Sounds Indian. I don't know. I mean, I guess. So I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I need to learn Hindi. I've been trying to listen to it while I sleep. Someone told me I could learn it in my sleep. I don't think that's working.
Well, maybe, I mean, if you can believe in astral projection, you can believe in unconscious learning.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
I mean, I have had dreams where I'm doing school or working in my dreams. So like, why can't I be learning a language, you know?
Yeah. It's all these, it's when you get on Instagram and you go through all the reels or whatever. It's that.
Yeah.
Stealing your attention.
Yeah. I'm going to wake up one day and be like, I can speak Hindi. And then I'll like try, and it's like just some language I've made up in my dreams. I
feel like that's, I could hope that that's actually something that occurs. No, that you actually are speaking Hindi, but it's there's some sort of mediator there. Yeah. Like,
yeah, there we go.
I'm just thinking of tongues suddenly.
Yeah. I wish. Oh man. What was I gonna say? I was gonna ask you something else, and now I forgot.
Well,
no, I forgot.
I'm not gonna have tons of juice left in me, Jason. I wanted to
It's 10:40.
I wanted to hang out for a second while I up-potted these things.
Well, you want me to finish reading this, or you gotta go right this second?
No, I'll stick around if you want to continue reading it.
All right,
I'm just
tell me what you think. All right, so we were reading about what we were reading about. Oh yeah, the second sight, and then it said. I thought this was interesting. It is interesting to learn that the Presbyterian seers justified their visions out of the Bible, which also justified the burning of these gifted men on occasion. So yeah, we're talking about that. I guess kind of the difference between the seers, then them being persecuted as because they had the second sight. Let's see. Let's see. I'll go back a little bit. The writings of Woodrow and Mr. Robert Blair of St. Andrews prove that if a savory preacher wrought marvels, he was inspired. But if an amateur did the very same things, prophesied, healed diseases, and so forth, he or she was likely to be haled before the presbytery and possibly dragged to the stake. In the Highlands, these individuous distinctions were less forcibly drawn. Mr. Kirk treats the whole question in his curiously cold scientific way. If these things occur, they are in the realm of nature and are results of causes which may be variously conjectured. They may be providential or a sport of evolution, derived from a complexional quality of the first acquirer, which often becomes hereditary in his lineage. I don't know what that was, Red. Did that make sense to you? I don't know. I'll keep reading. Lord Tarbot's letter to an inquirer, Robert Boyle, is added by Mr. Kirk in his little treatise with his own annotations. His belief that the fairy sights could only be seen while the eyes are kept steadily. His belief that the fairy sights could only be seen while the eyes are kept steady without twinkling is attested by a well-known anecdote. On the afternoon of Culloden, a little girl, staying with Lord Lovat at Gortleg, was reading in a window seat. Chancing to look out, she saw a company of headlong riders hastening to the castle. Believing them to be Slaymaith, I don't know, I guess that's the word for fairies, Slaymaith. Believing them to be Slaymaith, she tried hard to keep her eyes from twinkling, that she might not lose the vision. But these, alas, were no fairies. They were Prince Charles and his men flying from the victorious English. The tale proves that the belief long survived the day of the minister of Aberfoyle. Lord Tarbot mentions also the vision of the shroud on the breast of man about to die, which seems to be alluded to the prophecy of Theoclymenus in the Odyssey. What is that? Talbot mentioned, Theoclymenus in the Odyssey. I don't know, but something about the vision of the shroud on the breast of a man about to die. I haven't even heard of that. I don't know. Lord Talbot's tales are the familiar kind. There are dozens of such. Theophilus Insulanus. I don't know what these Latin terms mean. Should I look that up? Theophilus Insulanus. I'm trying.
Theophilus. Sounds like a dinosaur.
Theophilus. Could that be like love of God or something, right? Theophilus.
Oh, or brotherly love.
Yeah, it sounds like.
No, it would be love of God.
A treatise on the second sight, dreams and apparitions. What? Oh.
Whoa.
So Theo means God. I don't know what this. Let's see. Meaning. Let me put meaning. Meaning the people. I don't know what is. I don't know. I was trying to find a quick definition. I can't find one though. Anyway, let me see. All right, I'll just keep reading. There are dozens of such in Theo. Okay, Mr. Kirk's notes are chiefly remarkable for his citation of Walter Graham's Evil Eye. Hey, dude, I just made that today. Like, I was getting ready to show you that. I made a rosary with the evil eye on it.
Whoa.
Yeah. But anyway, so
What?
Mr.
Wait, was that just
What?
a synchronicity? What just happened?
Why did you do something with the evil eye? Or wait, or in the book you mean? The evil eye?
Yeah, that's
I don't
fine.
know, maybe. Evil eyes. I don't know, it's kind of popular though. Mr. Kirk's notes are chiefly remarkable for his citation of Walter Graham's evil eye, which killed what he praised, a worldwide superstition too common to reporting by foreign and classical examples. Unluckily, at this point, Mr. Kirk abandons what we may call his scientific attitude. He has accounted for his spiritual affairs as not supernatural. He has accounted for his supernatural affairs as not supernatural at all, phenomena in nature, and subject, like other phenomena, to laws. But now it occurs to him to explain the conduct of his slaymate as the result of missionary zeal on their part. Quote, they endeavor to convince us of deity, unquote, though, on the face of his argument, a co-walker no more proves a deity than does. He may have been reading, quote, the learned Dr. Moore, unquote, more the Platonist. So I guess he may have been reading, I guess, the learned Dr. Moore, who was a Platonist, and may have altered his ideas. His accounts of a girl who learned, or rather composed, a long poem by aid of, quote, our nimble and courteous spirits, unquote, affords an early example of what is called, quote, an inspirational medium, unquote. It is unlikely that Mr. Kirk did not publish this work, of which he had a copy. The ordinary spiritual poetry may be written, as Dr. Johnson said of Ossian, by anyone who could abandon his mind to it. So the original spirit poetry may be written by anyone who would abandon his mind to it. I kind of like that.
Wait, say that one more time.
The ordinary spiritual poetry may be written by anyone who would abandon his mind to it. So the ordinary spiritual poetry may be written by anyone who would abandon his mind to it. So like you give your mind, I think, over to the I guess
Whatever.
kind of like over to the imagination, yeah, and then you can
Or the muse of whatever that poem was.
yeah, that's a good way to say it. When Mr. Kirk maintains that Neolithic arrowheads could not have been executed by all the art of man, he relapses from his usual odd common sense. He also believes in men who are magically shot-proof, like Claverhouse, who had to be shot by a silver bullet, like Archbishop Sharp, on whom his pious assassins ironically held that their bullets took no effect, and like certain soldiers mentioned by Dugald Dalgetty of Drumthwacket. This absurd belief was very generally held by the Covenanters, where his local superstitions and those of his generation are not concerned. Mr. Kirk prefers his clearness of intellect. In purgatory, he finds only the Christian Hades, our secret republic. Okay, I'm going to have to read this slow probably. In purgatory, he finds only the pre-Christian Hades, quote, our secret republic, unquote. So, like, I guess that's what he's defining Christian Hades as, is also termed our secret republic. What does that even mean? In purgatory, he finds only the pre-Christian Hades, our secret republic, with an ecclesiastical coloring, quote, additional fictions of monks, quote, additional fictions of monks doting and crazied heads, unquote. This is hard for me to read, man. Mr. Kirk did not perceive the danger involved in his own argument. If a Highland second-sighted man answers to a Hebrew prophet in his visions and trances, a Hebrew prophet is in danger of being no more considered than a Highland second-sighted man. However, it is to Mr. Kirk's praise that you want me to read that again? I have it highlighted. I'm not sure I even understand it.
No, it's a bold statement in regards to, like, I think we do have this vision in our head of, like, the prophetic or first off, I don't know exactly what second sight is.
I think it just means seeing the spirit realm is what he's kind of referring to.
Yeah.
Like in it seems like in a broad sense, like hallucinations, all these different things. He kind of, I think, are under that one term, second sight.
What about clairvoyance?
What is clairvoyance exactly? Like,
Clear sight.
it's probably kind of similar. Like people that can kind of see spirits or fairies, or like
Yeah.
you'll see someone, like he mentioned when I read before, when Matthew joined me, like it talked about like seeing someone walk by you, and then you'd like say hi to them and they don't say anything, and then later you see that person walking. Like, so the first person walking by was like an apparition, and so people that can kind of see those things, or just see things that aren't there. He mentioned once like seeing forms of congealed air. That was a weird way of putting it. Like you kind of see forms of congealed air, like the way water would take a solid. Like, so certain people can see the way the air or the spirit will kind of form, or the wind will form in a certain something like that. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like that, but that sounds like a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
So I think
even more than that, I'm thinking of just that claim in that passage again, where it's like it's saying that I suppose the visions that we see of perhaps the prophet in ancient Hebrew we might take more seriously than a Highlander with second sight, but it's calling into question that very reality that we that we would take one more seriously than the other. But
yeah, so is he saying here, it says, if a second-sighted man answers to a Hebrew prophet in his visions and trances, a Hebrew prophet is in danger of being no more considered than a Highland second-sighted man. So is he saying that, like, if a Hebrew prophet is a Highlander in visions and is taking, like, is that what he's saying? I don't know what he's saying.
No, I probably misunderstood what he was saying. So,
well, what were you saying exactly? Like that, like if we don't take a Highlander with second sight seriously, we won't take a Hebrew prophet.
Yeah. Perhaps that would be a good way of saying it, or vice versa, where it's like maybe we prefer the oh man, I'm in the dark now.
Oh no, what happened?
All my grow lights turned off. I'm gonna turn them back.
Power?
No, they're on a timer, like for 8 hours versus.
Oh, that's why they're all colored like that too.
Well, this one's a particular weird one that I don't really love, but here we are. Yeah, I don't know what I was saying, but yeah, second sight.
Yeah. Well, I can keep reading. We're almost done the introduction. However, it is to Mr. Kirk's praise that he shows no persecuting disposition as far as witches are concerned, though he has seen them pricked, and that he argues very fairly from his premises and within his limits. He recognizes the unity of spiritual phenomena and of popular beliefs, whether it springs from a common wellhead of delusion in our nature, or whether it really has a source in the observation of peculiar and rather rare phenomena. To the Edinburgh edition of 1815, probably the only one, the editor added the work of Theophilus and Solanus on second sight. That was the thing I mentioned earlier. Okay. This is not rare nor expensive, and we do not reproduce it. One case of telepathy may be quoted from Theophilus. Donald Beaton, so this is in quotation, quote, Donald Beaton, residenter in Hamir, related that in his passage from Glasgow to the Isle of Skye, he stopped at Tippermory, a known harbor in the Isle of Mull. Here someone gave him, so then that's the end of the quote. I don't know why. And then it said, okay, here someone gave him a loin of venison. Donald, whose wife's mother was a seer, to try her powers, wished that piece of venison in her hands. This is going to be fun. Quote, the same night the seer I know. I'm excited about this. I don't know why. Quote, the same night, the seer who lived with her daughter, his wife, apprehended she saw him enter the house with a shapeless lump in his hands. She knew not what, but it resembled flesh, which gave herself and her daughter great joy, as they had despaired of him by his long absence. Unquote. This is telepathy, if telepathy there be. Wait, so what happened? What?
Wait, yeah, what did just happen? Because I feel like they literally just. Oh man.
So he was on in his passage from Glasgow. So he's going somewhere, and he stopped at a town, a known harbor in the Isle of Mull, Tippermory. Here someone gave him a loin of venison. Donald, whose wife's mother was a seer, to try her powers, wished that piece of venison in her hands. The same night the seer, who lived with her daughter, his wife, apprehended she saw him enter the house with a shapeless lump in his hands. What does that mean, though? That the language seems weird. Apprehended she saw him enter the house with a shapeless lump in his hand. So did she just see a vision?
She came upon the thought in her imagination, or in her
Gotcha.
own sight, in her own second sight. She came across that understanding that he was procuring that meat.
Okay, so she just kind of saw him from a distance. She saw him doing that.
Yeah.
This is telepathy, if telepathy there be. Gotcha. Okay, I was thinking because it sounded like.
But was she asserting her own will? Was she asserting?
I don't know. It says, like, I was excited because it says she wished that piece of venison in her hands. So I thought she was gonna like steal the venison from him, but it sounds like she just saw him holding it or something.
To me, it sounds like she influenced him through her thought processes. So like, she was able to think because she was like visualizing having that meat in her hands or whatever. She was capable of influencing him because that was simultaneously co-occurring with her own thought. So it's trying to provide an example, I guess, or a vision of what that would look like. But telepathy is a stretch in the sense that, like, aren't you reading somebody else's thoughts? Did she wish the meat in her hand simply because he was also purchasing it at the exact time? It just sounds more like a synchronicity.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm probably getting
distracted. That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does kind of sound like a synchronicity, but then it is kind of like weird. I guess telepathy is probably the idea that your minds are somewhat connected or interwoven. So maybe that would be kind of the whole idea of it. It's like that synchronicity should almost should occur because you are telepathic with one another. Because you hear twins, I guess it's kind of like that. That's a phenomenon with twins, right?
Yeah. Imagine if we lived that way with people, though.
That would be fun. Do you think you can do that with people? With your wife? Do you try that?
I don't know. Dude, I don't know. Sometimes it happens naturally, but you can't count on it. That's the problem. But it's almost like you wish you could count on that. Like you wish that you could just think, even in arguments, like for instance, like what happened this morning? Oh, I remember my wife wishing that I had known what she was thinking.
The way you sighed. Oh, I remember my wife wishing that, like, that's like a common husband problem.
Yo, it sounded like so, like, but how often we wish other people knew what we were thinking, or that we knew what somebody else was thinking, so that we could simply satisfy their desires or something like that, without having to like communicate about it explicitly, to just know implicitly that that's what the other person wants. And I guess like if you do know someone intimately, like for perhaps the phenomenon with twins, fraternal twins or something like that, there's sort of a genetic tie. But I suppose also with someone that you're married to, or perhaps another sibling, or just someone that you love, someone that you're close with, a good friend,
Yeah.
and like all of a sudden you say the exact same thing at the same time because you're both thinking it or something like that. I
Yeah.
don't know. There's something. What am I trying to point out? Maybe there's something beautiful about that, but also like something that is powerful, like an actual
Yeah.
real force in the world.
I wonder, like, I sometimes wonder if it can kind of be practiced too, or like that's what I mean. If it can be practiced and
Expected.
yeah, like if you get to know a certain person, I mean, there's a way you can kind of guess at what they're thinking, but there's another way. Like I really think, I mean, there's more natural ways where it seems like you're communicating telepathically, where like you just know you're thinking the same thing. Like I had that happen with my sisters sometimes, where it's just like I think it's just because we know each other so well, so like we could be in a conversation or like we're all at the table and like we know we're all thinking the exact same thing and nobody has to say anything because we're just like or like someone else could be talking that's not part of our family and you know like oh as soon as they say this one phrase it's like oh we all think this. Gosh, I don't know the right way to describe it, but then there's a way like I think that happens. That doesn't even strike me as telepathy necessarily. It might seem more the communication between someone between someone and their dog might be closer, like where you know what your dog is thinking, even though like that seems to happen with people and animals more, which seems more strange, I guess. And then, but then there's also the telepathy, like we're talking about, where you just know something and the other person's on the other side of the world, and you're just like, there's just a weird connection, you know, and you're like, man, like I know this person, like you're just having the same thought, or this person needs me right now. I need to call this person or something like that. It's like, I don't know if there's something like that where your minds are just connected. But I wonder if you can practice it though, is the weird thing. I think there's even a game I was looking at one time and it was supposed to be like a telepathy game where like, I think it was a card game and like one person would pick the card up and you were supposed to like try to just communicate using your mind and guess like what was on the card. I think it was supposed to like, yeah, I can't remember what it was called. It was just some like little card game you can get at Walmart or something. And I was like, this might be kind of fun to try. I never did though. But I wonder if it's something you kind of cultivate and practice like that. I don't know.
I get what you're saying. I guess the way I would even almost say it is like often we walk around in the world as if we cannot trust that type of thing. You know, like I would say that's even like perhaps that's because science could disprove it or something like that, you know, and almost isolate you from the next person, you know, like there's a way in which we could explain it away, but
well, weren't they like trying to study it? Wasn't that like Men Who Stare at Goats in that movie and stuff? Like they were trying to study that. I don't remember much of that movie anymore.
But just the very notion that you could rely on it or take it seriously or learn to practice it, because perhaps there is a practice that goes alongside with it, you know, like.
Yeah.
I wonder what that would look like, though. Do you have any intimation of what that would look like?
If you're trying to practice it, oh, man. I don't know, man. I just don't. A lot of this stuff, like, even when I read about this stuff, I believe it so much, but I'm just like, I almost feel like I'm not gifted in any of those areas. Like, I feel like it could come super easily to some people, but I always feel like it's just such a struggle for me.
Yeah, I get you.
To be sensitive to those things. Because I almost feel like that you could probably find people where, like, on the giving and receiving end, both, like, they're just so sensitive to spiritual things that they probably could communicate telepathically just with their thoughts. If someone could just give a thought, and the other person could just kind of, if they're paying attention, could just pick up on it somehow. But I don't think that I could. I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's just people like that.
Or perhaps that's even like happening all the time.
And I don't even know.
Like there's almost like a way in which we could become more conscious of the fact that that's actually happening.
Well, I mean, anything. I mean, if you think about it, even with like angels, like and angels being messengers from gods, and just or the way people talk. What is that philosopher talked about as daemon? And it's like you're getting like thoughts from outside of you that just kind of come to you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you. I mean, I do think I experience that sometimes for sure. I think everybody that. And I wonder. I mean, that would probably work in the same way, I guess, as like someone telepathically telling you something.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I would agree with you.
Yeah. I don't know. We should try it. I'm gonna try to steal some venison from you tonight.
How did you know that I have some? That's a little weird.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
I just figured you probably did. Knowing you.
Yeah, you're now I'm gonna be like wondering what those footsteps upstairs are actually all about.
If it's me, I astral projected over to your house.
Yeah, he's sneaking down the back stairway.
You open one of the doors. It's just like all that's left is like in the middle of the room is some like half-eaten raw like venison. There's nothing there. It's like he was here. He was here.
Dude, that's wild.
I don't know. I don't know how to do the witch's flight. I haven't practiced. One more page. I can do it. All right.
Oh yeah.
Another. No. That's. Don't apologize. Let's see. Another picturesque tale. Another picturesque tale shows how on the night before rout of Moy, Patrick McCaskill met the famed Merriman Maloids. Why are all these names are like M apostrophe something else? McCaskill, the famed Merriman, and Maloids Piper. Like they throw in all these names and it just makes the sentence so cumbersome. And that picturesque tale shows how on the night before rout of Moy, someone's Piper, I guess, in the town of Inverness, yeah, that's it, Inverness, and saw him contract into the size of a boy of 5 or 6 and expand again into his athletic proportions. What? Another picturesque tale shows how. So apparently, some guy's Piper contracted into a boy of 5 or 6 and expand again into his athletic proportions. Merriman was killed in the rout of Moy, an attempt to surprise and seize Prince Charles. Before leaving sight, he had prophesied, and this is quote, Maliad shall come back, but Merriman shall never. Okay?
Merriman.
Maliad. It's like Maliad, like M apostrophe Leod. It's someone's name. I don't know. But
Yeah.
Merriman shall never. I don't know. The editor is acquainted with a splendid case of second sight in Kensington. The seer was an accomplished English gentleman and mentioned his vision at the moment to a witness who remembers and corroborates the statement. Thus, Hebrides and the Hebrides and Highlands have no monopoly of second sight. Okay, the researchers of M. Charcot, M. Richet, and other psychologists do not at present help us much in the matter of veridical second sight. It is not a hallucination suggested to a hypnotized subject, but an impression produced by a remote person or event on a subject who has not been hypnotized at all. All right, so let's see. So the researchers, other psychologists, present us much matter. So they're talking about second sight, and they said it is not a hallucination suggested to a hypnotized subject, but an impression produced by a remote person or event on a subject who has not been hypnotized at all. For example, Dr. Adam Clark in his life, I guess it's a book, tells us of Mr. Tracy Clark, who, being in the Isle of Man with his son, dreamed that he had visited his wife in Liverpool. He told his son that Mrs. Clark was looking very well, but contrary to her habit, was sleeping in the best bedroom. On the day when Mr. Clark said this, Mrs. Clark, who had been sleeping in her best bedroom, told the little son who lay in her room that she had heard his father ride up to the house, stable his horse, open the door, come upstairs, and walk round her bed, but that she could not see him. This is a case, at least, of second hearing, and has no hypnotic explanation. We end in the candid spirit of Dr. Johnson as far as poltergeist and second sight are concerned, willing to be convinced, but far indeed from conviction. As to the fairy belief, we conceive to be of complex matter, from which tradition, with its memory of earth dwellers, is not wholly absent, while more is due to a survival of pre-Christian Hades, and to belief in local spirits, the Vuas of Melanesia, and Nereids of ancient and modern Greece, the Lairs of Rome, the fateful Moirae and Hathors, old imaginings of a world not yet dispeopled of its dreams. I don't know. That's how it ends. The introduction. I have that highlighted. The old imaginings of a world not yet dispeopled of its dreams.
Dispeopled.
Of its dreams. That's just weird. It's weird phrasing. That's what I mean. And then it's got a little note under here. The earth houses in Scotland and the Isles, which seem to have been uninhabited at an early period, can seldom be called hills or mounds, being built for purposes of concealment. They are usually almost on a level with the surrounding land. The fairy hills, on the other hand, are higher and much more notable, and were probably sepulchral. I can never say that word, sepulchral. This, at least, is the impression left on me by Mr. McRatchie's book, The Underground Life. I don't know. It's the end of the introduction. Then I actually then we can actually start the actual thing by Robert Kirk, which will probably be a lot more interesting because I have a whole bunch more highlighted. That introduction is just so,
you had to swallow it. Sometimes, like, the introductions to books try to condense the book, and I don't know.
It's just so hard to read. Like, I remember it being really hard to read the first time I went through it because it was just like I'm trying to read a sentence, and in the middle of the sentence it just crams in 10 names or like all these different book references, and it just makes the sentence so hard to just get through. And by the time I get through all the names, I'm like, wait, what was the first half of this? Why did we structure this sentence this way? But I don't know. Matt, a good point is, he was like, when, like, last time I was reading the first part of it, he said, well, you got to think back then they didn't really have the internet, so like you're trying to put in like all your references, like, so you can kind of, give more clarity, or like tell people I got this from here or there, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's
so people
true.
could go look up more stuff. You're kind of like creating a weird little library inside your book or something,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns, and Fairies, an essay of nature and actions of subterranean and most part invisible people. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I remember you bringing it up when Sherry and I and you were doing the imagination essay.
Yeah.
And
I've had that book for a while.
Yeah, you've read that a few times now. I have not picked it up yet. So
I think this is maybe the third time I've read it. Maybe. I mean, I haven't read it very much. I just remember, I don't even know where I first heard of it. And then when I heard of it, I just I ordered a copy, and then I just remember reading it out when I was walking with my dogs, and just being kind of blown away. I don't know if it'll strike me as profound as it did the first time. I mean, because the first time I was kind of coming across all those ideas, and it was, I remember probably getting the book about the time I started to actually believe in fairies.
You were finding fairy thrones in real life.
Yeah. So it was just kind of like, so I think that was maybe one of the reasons I found it so profound, because I was like, wait, this actually like makes what way more sense to actually believe in fairies than to just kind of dismiss the whole idea.
Yeah.
It's like
I
if you believe
remember,
in angels and spirits, it's like why wouldn't I don't know why you would really believe in fairies or anything like that. And so,
I
but I can't
completely,
remember. I mean, it's been years. Like I said, it was probably like 2018. I read this book, maybe.
or to be so certain that fairies don't exist, this just seems like such a silly position to take.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no.
and so it's just one of those things where, yeah, how are you supposed to see something that you don't believe in either, or how are you supposed to encounter something that you don't believe in? It's such a silly, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, we should.
not that these
It's
things can't.
funny because it's normally the other way around. It's like people are always think like if you say you believe in fairies, like most people I would say that to would probably just laugh at me, or they just wouldn't take me seriously. Like
Yeah,
I'm probably the only person in my family. Like maybe, I mean, I think my sister Natalie would probably believe in fairies. I don't think anybody is necessarily against believing in fairies in my family now, probably because they know how weird I am. But I don't think they're like against it. But I think if someone were to ask them, they'd probably say no. You know.
I
But
think that was one of my favorite things that you would say when I first met you. I would hear you
I
say,
believe in fairies.
yeah, you were like, I'm pretty sure fairies are real.
Yeah,
I'd be like, yeah, dude. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, I agree.
yeah, yeah. It took me a while to get there. It didn't take too long though, because once I
No,
I just never really thought about it, and then once you actually think about it, you're like, this actually makes way more sense. Um, to believe in them to not. It is more silly to not, or it's more to. I shouldn't say to not believe in them, but it's more silly to say they don't exist. Like to
yeah,
say, yeah,
exactly. And to express any kind of certitude that like you've
yeah,
seen, you've you've encountered it all. And to deny the like encounter, it also is like this strange, I mean, I know everybody's childhood is different, but like um it's almost like this strange way of like truly rejecting like your childhood in a sense. Um, does that make sense? Or I guess what I'm trying to say is like these things were real to me at one point in my life in an undeniable sense, and then suddenly they became
yeah, yeah,
something that I could deny,
yeah,
and then somehow I concluded that the denial of those things was correct versus like coming back around full circle to being like, okay, like um,
yeah.
this experience is that I had is something that I can still have.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah. I totally agree. What was that thing I sent in the chat earlier? Let me find it. I thought it was interesting because I was reading this before I started this to the Mahabharata. Mahabharat. However, let's see. A child should be like a boat to save its parents in life and afterlife.
Dude, I love that.
I do too. It's just so good. I said it.
Just a
Yeah,
boat.
because it just, I mean, like you're talking about when you're a child, it's like these things are just more real. And then you kind of have to come back around to it. A
Yeah.
child should be like a boat to save his parents in life and afterlife.
Where did
I
you?
think
Yeah.
I think there's just
great one.
that statement I just think is so true on like a lot of different levels. I think I mean I don't even think you have to look at it as just strictly the imagination or just strictly returning to childlikeness. I just think it's true on like I don't know. It just when I read it I was like, man, that's such a great statement.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Jason,
Good.
I am fading out.
Me too. I'm tired.
Dude, I bet. I thought
I don't
you're still in your trailer, aren't you?
yeah, I'm in here. I mean I'm just parked at my parents' house, but I've been staying in here.
Nice.
Yeah. So I gotta let this dog out. She's the bathroom again.
Wait, you have a dog?
No, I'm watching my friend's dog. I can show you. He's sleeping, but you see him.
Oh, hi.
He's my friend. When she's in Colorado, I think she was applying for a job, or she already applied for a job. I think she basically has it. She just had to go out there and do some training or something. So I've been watching him for I think like a week and a half. By the time she gets back, I think she's coming back Sunday or something. So
Nice.
but
That's a nice
he's
thing.
a good dog. Yeah, it's a very chill dog. He doesn't really do much.
How is its breath? Does it
That's
smell
weird.
good?
Why do you ask that?
Because
Are we like communicating telepathically right now? Because I was about to comment on how bad his breath smells.
really?
Yeah, I really was, and I thought to myself, I shouldn't say this to Luke on a live stream.
No, I mean, I brought it up. I mean, I clearly know.
Yeah. I must have
I
sent my thoughts to you. You read them. You captured my thoughts, and
no, my
Yeah.
in-laws have dogs that look like that dog that's laying on that bed. You know,
yeah.
all their teeth are just rotting out of their mouths. And
Gosh.
but I feel so bad for these dogs because they just smell so putrid, and they love
yeah.
me. They love crawling up on me. They love getting in my face, and they love licking my beard. And I say, you stinky little boys, get out of here. Stop touching me. Stop licking me. I know you want kisses, but now is not the time. And there will never be a time unless you get all your teeth removed and you get some dentures or something like that, because it's just
clip it. That's what we need to clip for you stinky little boys. Get out of here. There will never be a time when you can kiss me until you have your teeth removed. We'll just clip that totally out of context and no one knows you're talking about dogs.
That'll be pretty good.
But his breath does smell pretty bad. He's got teeth. He's got his teeth, but he was attacked by a large dog like a year and a half ago or something. So his jaw's broken. So his teeth are like he's got his like his bottom teeth are sticking out the side of his mouth all the time. So he looks kind of funny. Very cute. Very
Those
cute.
big dogs,
He's
they
waking
can do some
up.
damage.
Yeah, and so he can't eat solid food anymore. So you have to like take his solid food and put it in water, and it gets all soft and mushy, and then he can eat it, and it just doesn't really smell super great. And then after he eats it, his breath smells even worse, I think. And
Yeah.
But his breath it can be pretty putrid, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I get it. We don't have to. I don't want to diss your friend's dog because
It's okay. I don't want to diss him either, but I mean, he doesn't like. I don't think he has a funk. Like his fur doesn't stink. Like some dogs, will just stink, but I'm pretty sure it's all his breath. But it is like bad sometimes. Like he can stink up the whole RV. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop breathing on things.
Some Listerine strips or something like that.
Yeah. Then he'd probably get diarrhea and then it'd be worse.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know. They don't have a good solution for dog breath, I feel like.
Yeah, but he's got this little tiger he humps, and he humps it. It's a little stuffed tiger. Did I tell you this already? I told Mitch, I know. But he does. I sent you the video. Yeah. And he humps it sideways. I don't understand. It's so weird. I'm just like he lays on his side, grabs his little tiger, puts his arm around it, and so he's just laying on his side and he's humping it. And it's like a dog that doesn't know doggy style. It's just kind of strange.
I wonder if it's just like a nervous tick. Like that's his comfort. That's his comfort zone.
To just hump it on the side. I mean, it's inspiring. It's very gentlemanly. It's not as dominating. It's just
Very gentlemanly.
Yeah, he seems very passionate about it. Him and his tiger. But all right, man. Well, I can end this here and let you go in this stream. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, bye,
Goodbye.
bye.